The Vlogbrothers, John and Hank Green, two brothers who are so multi-hyphenate that it almost does them a disservice to try and define them, but for the purposes of an intro, I will do my best. Authors of The Fault in Our Stars, The Anthropocene Reviewed, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, and A Beautifully Foolish Endeavour. Founders of VidCon, DFTBA, merchandising company that helps other YouTubers with merch. Founders of Subbable, which was this like Kickstarter kind of platform that got acquired by Patreon, I think, in 2015. Complexly, which produces YouTube shows like SciShow. They run educational YouTube channel Crash Course, which was absolutely responsible for the passing grade of at least 80% of my biochem class at uni. They run Project for Awesome, their yearly community charity event. They run Good.Store, an online e-commerce brand that sells everything from socks to tea to coffee to soap to cleaning products now, where all of the proceeds go to Partners in Health. They are comedians, musicians, podcasters, AFC Wimbledon fan and part owner, science communicator, Mars enthusiast, keepers of the Nerdfighteria community. I mean, just so many things, and I can't wait for people in the comments to be like, oh yeah, and also remember how Hank also has his skydiving license and he's a skydiving instructor. I don't know, nothing surprises me at this point, but they are very accomplished gentlemen. And you know, on a personal level, the Green brothers, and specifically Hank, are, I would say, is a hero of mine. Specifically what Hank has done for science communication is super inspiring to me and something that I think is so important as someone who has studied science and now works in the industry. Yeah, it's something I really admire. The way they both conduct themselves online, the way they so clearly understand the gravity and impact that their platform has, and the way that they model their own complex emotions and critical thinking through complex issues is something that I think this world needs right now. Like, one of my favorite videos that Hank has done recently was where he walks you through this question he has and how he actually goes about researching it, how he interrogates the sources and continues down the rabbit hole, and how he can interpret the data and any of its biases. I'm going to link that. I think it's super important. I really like that. Also, just to keep it even, one of my favorite John videos of the last couple of years is where he rallied the community against Danaher to lower the price of critical TB detection kits, which, you know, we'll circle back to TB. But this video isn't just supposed to be a glaze session of John and Hank Green. John's obsession over the past 3 years has been tuberculosis, and he's just released his new book, Everything is Tuberculosis, and I want to read it. And in an effort to make a thumbnail that you will click on, thank you so much for clicking and being here, hi. I also want to read Hank's first novel, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, because I am a sci-fi fan and I've never read it before. And we'll also chuck in Turtles All the Way Down, which is John's most recent fiction novel that recently, was it last year, got adapted into a movie. So if you're part of Nerdfighteria, or you like reading vlogs, or you just want to hear what I think about Everything is Tuberculosis, my name is Mel. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get into it. Now, I'd love to give you some really aesthetic clips of me reading these books, but I would say I read 90% of all of them on a plane. I recently got back from a holiday with my husband where we had to travel 48 hours, and I'm not really brave enough to film myself reading on a plane. So I'm just gonna have to tell you my thoughts here retroactively. Apologies. So let's start with An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, which was published in 2018, which was 7 years ago. I don't want to talk about it. And this book is very Hank. His authorial voice is very similar, if not exactly the same as his, you know, speaking voice, his normal cadence. So even though I physically read this, it's almost like Hank was reading it to me in my head, because I absolutely just read this with Hank's voice in mind. For me, this was a good thing because Hank's humor, his cadence, the way he communicates really lands for me, but it is a very specific style, so it might not be for you. So this book is sci-fi, and we're following April May, who is the first person to document to the world via YouTube the giant robot that has appeared in New York City and all around the world. And this launches her to massive mainstream and internet fame. And she quickly becomes this, I guess, cultural leader for one side of the debate when it comes to these Transformers, aliens, we don't know what they are. And so there's big themes here about social media and how that relates to fame and radicalization, and you know, April is grappling with her identity throughout all of this. She's grappling with her desire for success and fame and what she thinks is right. You know, she is not a likable character, in my opinion. She is very single-minded, she's very selfish. But for me, I think it was very much in service of the themes. It was important to see her growth throughout the novel. I do think people might struggle being with her so much, though, if you're not someone who enjoys reading unlikable characters. I did have some issues with the pacing. I thought the start was really strong, and then we kind of like meandered into the middle. The book sort of changes direction in the middle to this sort of global puzzle solving vibe, which was fun, but I do think we got bogged down a little bit in the middle sections. But the ending, yes, Hank, yes. The ending had me doing these ones where you're like, surely I'm missing part of the book, that can't be the end, what the heck? But also it was a great ending, like leaves you on that cliffhanger. I really liked the final act of this book, and it will make me pick up the second one. So mission accomplished, I guess. It's almost like I could feel Hank was like settling into the characters and the voice and the story and the writing in that final third. So I am actually really keen to pick up the next book, and my hope would be that it's a little bit more consistent in terms of pacing and character the whole way through. These are conversations and themes that Hank has spoken a lot about before, which, you know, obviously these are ideas that are very close to him. But unfortunately, these messages about how social media can be used to exacerbate and polarize issues so much is even more relevant now than he ever could have known. So good job, I guess. I wish it wasn't so true. But overall, is this my favorite sci-fi novel of all time? No, but did I have a good time reading it? Yes, absolutely. And I was compelled to keep reading. So what more can you ask for? So this is 4 stars from me. If you like these things, maybe give it a go. But if you don't like these things, might not be the one for you. It's a unique position to be in, reading from John and Hank. They share so much online through Vlogbrothers, podcasts, tweets, that I feel like I know a lot about them and about their voice. So the same as Hank's book, John's voice is super obvious here. But I'm sure that is also because so much of his personal experience has been put into this novel. This book is really an exploration of what it's like to live with obsessive compulsive disorder and anxiety. What that means for your thoughts, for your relationships, for how you view the world. There is a plot, but it's super loose and it's more just a vessel to explore OCD and, you know, anxiety and thought spirals. And this book it's really heavy. I just wanted to wrap up Aza, the main character, and just tell her that it was going to be fine and make it go away and somehow make it better for her. So in that way, you know, it really got an emotional reaction out of me. I'm not someone who's ever had any form of diagnosed mental illness. I think it does a really good job of putting you in her mind and making you understand that push and pull, that fight she has with her own brain. I can't really speak to the representation of others with OCD, but, you know, John has said this is pretty representative of his experience with OCD. I think that's really important because I think OCD is one of those things that's kind of thrown around a little bit. People are happy to say like, I'm just so OCD about that, or, you know, it's referenced as kind of this superpower that helps people solve cases. But to have this sort of representation that, no, it's hard and it sucks and it's not this, and it's not to be romanticized, but it's also something that you can live through and that you can live with. I haven't read any other John Green fiction in quite a while, but God, he really captures the angst of high school and the high school experience so well. That constant searching for identity and belonging, and just, he knows how to capture that feeling, and he knows how to write a pretentious teenager. Onto some negatives. It's pretty slow moving, and I think in trying to portray such complex illnesses, the characters I think lack a little bit of depth, especially some of the side characters, of which there aren't that many anyway. For me, they were a little bit flat sometimes. Also, as I said, it's not big on plot, but there is this kind of side mystery where this billionaire goes missing and they're trying to figure out where he is, and she reconnects with his son, who she knew from years ago. I don't know if it was really necessary, but to me it was fine. Like, it wasn't overly good or bad, it was just kind of there. There were some very cliche John Green themes of the human condition and hope and humanity, and I love that shit. So with the good and the bad, overall I give this 3.5 stars. I read this all in one sitting on a plane. if I hadn't read it all in one sitting, would I have been compelled to keep picking it back up? I don't know, because as I said, it's quite slow and quite heavy. You might enjoy this if you like John Green, if you've liked books of his in the past, if you're seeking out some mental health representation, specifically OCD, and if you like it to be light on the plot but heavy on the theme, but not completely without plot. You might not like this if you don't like pretentious teenagers. I know that's something that lots of people had an issue with other John Green novels, that it is unrealistic, that teens don't talk like that. And let me tell you, as a former pretentious teen, I take issue with that. If you don't like unlikable characters, low plot, and if you don't like unsubtle themes and messaging. I know it's an issue some people had with books like Babel, where they're like, okay, we don't need a sledgehammer to the head to know what's going on here. This is a little bit like that, so I'll leave this one up to you. But that leaves us to what we all came here for.
Tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis. Tuberculosis. Everything is tuberculosis.
That's right, everything is tuberculosis. I feel like everyone in Nerdfighteria knows a lot more than the average bear about tuberculosis, just because so many Vlogbrothers videos have been about it over the last couple of years. But regardless, there's still a lot to learn here for normies or people from Nerdfighteria. I listened to this entirely on audiobook, and that's because I'm still in line at the library for the physical copy. So, you know, we do what we can do. I really enjoy the audio experience. John narrates it himself. And I have to say, I personally prefer John's nonfiction to his fiction. Potentially that is because I'm an adult now. I'm not really the target audience for the fiction books he's written so far. But I really enjoyed the Anthropocene Reviewed. And if you liked that, if you liked the way that was written, I think you'll definitely enjoy this book as well. It is the same writing style. It's still very John Green. So this book talks about the history and injustice surrounding tuberculosis, specifically through the story of this young man in Sierra Leone named Henry, which is also the name of John Green's son. And I think this is really successful. So much of the book is trying to make you understand the suffering and the people that are affected by this. And I think it can be quite difficult when you hear, you know, 1 million people died last year of tuberculosis, and for your brain to comprehend that as 1 million people, actual people, human suffering, people's families, you know, I think using Henry's story as the connective tissue really did well to bring it all back to the humanity and the human suffering. Choosing to champion Henry really gives this book such heart and compassion. In fact, I think if you don't read nonfiction very often or have never, you should give this a go, because it's not just a dry recounting of facts, which there is a time and place for that, but the way it switches between different periods of history and Henry's story and now, I think is balanced really well. For me, I just wanted more. I wanted it to be longer, I wanted to go deeper, I wanted to learn more, and I think there was a lot of stuff I already knew because I was so plugged into Vlogbrothers and Dear Hank and John. But I think that's the point. This is supposed to be for the masses and to reach as many people as possible about TB. And even so, at the end, there's this great list of resources to continue your research if that's something you want to do, which I have. I've put a couple of things on my TBR. So I think this is a great starting point for TB, but if you were looking for a more in-depth analysis, I don't think this is for you. So this is 4.5 stars for me. Almost there, really, really loved it. Pick this up if you want a quick, easy non-fiction read. Pick this up if you don't read very much non-fiction but you would like to get into it. Pick this up if you want to learn a little bit more about tuberculosis. Maybe don't pick this up if you already know a fair bit about TB and you want more of a medical or political or economic view of TB, and this is not for you. This very much lightly touches on all of those things but doesn't dive too deep into it. But that is it. Thank you so much for joining me. Am I biased as part of Nerdfighteria? Of course I am. I am predisposed to enjoying what they make because I enjoy what they make. I enjoy listening to both of the Green brothers yap, so obviously I'm more inclined to connect with their written yappage than the average punter. Actually, as I was putting this video together, on the subreddit, someone compiled a list of all the books that Hank and John have ever recommended. So if you like this video, if it somehow found you and you would like to see more in this kind of realm, please let me know and I might pick out some books from there for a challenge in the future. As always, let me know what you think. Let me know if you've read any of these or if they're on your TBR. Let me know if you have any associated recommendations. But thank you so much for being here and I'll see you in the next one.